We're back for part 3 of the Digital Media Literacy Asynchronous Lecture, looking at some week 2 discussion questions, and I will turn to a few from Rosalind, and looking at first the Writing the 21st Century book. Linda Spencer makes the statement that we read and write differently on a computer screen than we do on paper, page 43. And question 1 from that excerpt is, do you believe futuristically, right, that the vocabulary in traditional English language overall will become more contemporary considering the language used by Twitter and Instagram users? It already is, right? The present is the future. At least according to UrbanDictionary.com, right? This is a part of that growth process of language, and it's so funny. It's easy to become territorial about certain words, certain terms, and indeed, there's a reason we would have a knee-jerk reaction to those types of changes in word meanings, because that's how we orient reality, right? Reality isn't. Words are, to call back to previous part 2 of the lecture this week, we talked about semiotics, the study of signs and symbols. Well, written language is yet another form of signs and symbols. Okay, it's linguistic signs and symbols that we use to organize our thoughts, to create a shared, reality, a cultivated society, and when people start to modify that, alter it, change it, put words and phrases and definitions and meanings into question, or to juxtapose them with new alternative meanings, uses, definitions, and so on, this creates concern. All right, that's a natural response. It also gets me thinking about this whole phenomenon, our course-long discussion about fake news and alternative facts, even the terms themselves. This idea that we're going to redefine what something means, and maybe it was something people thought of positively before and informative before, and now all of a sudden we're gonna muddy the waters here and make it hard to agree upon. And guess what? When things are really hard to agree upon and we get this Tower of Babel syndrome, right, then that's when people sort of say, I need a leader to stand in for me and kind of like just point me in a direction, right, and make it feel unified. So a little bit of inoculation theory there, perhaps happening in real time. What do you think writing styles will look like in the future? Emoji, right? I don't know. We shall see. I appreciate all of the crystal ball questions coming in from folks. It's a lot of fun. And if I had the best possible responses, then we need to figure out a way to monetize that, right? So that we are profiting off of my prognostications here. Do you believe hardcover books will ever become obsolete? We may hit a point in time where they become outpriced, right? Too elusive, based on supply and demand or the economics of paper or something like that. But hardcover books will still be circulated. So I see them still being circulated. The advent of print is a remarkable pivot, a paradigm shift in human history, just as the internet is. But one of the things we're learning from a text like Spreadable Media is we don't have to wholly abandon one medium, one form. We have to learn how to navigate multiple simultaneously in order to be successful, at least right now. Future robot overlords could correct me on that if I'm wrong. Denise, popular culture. Denise noted the statement by Baudrillard, who maintains that the borderline between fiction and reality has vanished. Page 58. Love. This is just a fun chapter to read. I don't know. First question from that excerpt. How do you believe digital media will futuristically, in the future, affect the use of television, CDs, DVDs, etc. On a global scale, I can't. Well, see, first of all, CDs, I can barely play these anymore. Okay, I don't know about you. I have very few devices in which that would play a CD for me. And things don't come with CD players anymore, and my goodness, they scratch so easily, don't they? You've got to, those things are so mortal, okay, for lack of a better term. But so what I'm sensing in this question, and maybe even from a couple of you, is this, that recognizing some of our technologies have an end point, an end date, right? They too, right, shall cease to exist and function. But I would ask how many of you use dictaphone? Okay. When is the last time you hand wrote a letter to someone and then went and mailed that? I'm not saying someone hasn't in our class or other classes or other users. Of course they have. But when was the last time? Or how frequently do you do that? When's the last time any of you sent a telegraph? Go down to the, where did those stations, did they exist? Did they build them onto the railroad stations? Well, I need to explore history of the telegraph a little bit more. Candygram, any of those types of things. What do you think the future broadcasting technology will look like? Have we seen Minority Report? All right, Total Recall. So much of the fiction of Philip K. Dick, or these future shock movies. Incredible at predicting or inspiring the trajectory of where we take our technologies. 2001: A Space Odyssey, and so on, right? Science fiction has always had this amazing role where it can prophesy and project creative ideas. And then when a text is inspiring enough and captures the popular imaginary, we find ourselves actually morphing our inventions, our advents, and so on, right? Our technologies into reflections of that. Very interesting. Do you believe that the diversity in digital communication technology will diminish or increase? Okay. Do you believe that the diversity in digital communication technology will diminish or increase? It will do one of those two things until it does the other. That's my response. Aaron has a question about the Baudrillard video. Would Baudrillard have considered his ideas to be real? Quotation marks real. Or would he have considered his own theories another part of society that had collided with fiction? And if so, what can we conclude from this? Okay. My follow-up would be, Aaron, which pill would you select? The red pill or the blue pill, right? Baudrillard, though, was a postmodernist, okay? So, Danesi writes a little bit about postmodern thought, and this is somewhat how Danesi frames popular culture, right? Especially when he talks about things like genre mixing, admixture, bricolage, and some of these other fun terms that we read about here. On the Stranger Things recap that we read in conjunction with the oppositional theory theme this week, does the success of Stranger Things, particularly this episode, lie more with the nostalgic elements or the ingenuity of the episode or the TV production? Or does it hinge on the duality of both? I see what you did there. And my response would be, let's look at the architecture of genre theory. right? It can be very convoluted to study, to explore, but its basic premise is quite straightforward, that genre theories is. And when you think about genre, successful genre products, texts, and so on, you have ultimately a combination of two qualities, a combination of convention, right? The staple elements, the tropes and conventions, the formulas, and so on. You have that combination of convention and invention, all right? The innovative properties that make something stick, right? That make it memorable, that give it excitement, because that's the newness. And so convention and invention. And these, when we break it down, yes, are a duality of qualities. They are somewhat oppositional. So great revelation there. And encourage you all. Rick Altman, a great genre theorist. John Frau has a book that's decent on the subject, and several others. Jason Mattel has written about genre and television. And yeah, that's just a small sampling. We'll tease it for now. Looking back at the Denisi pop culture text, chapter 2, page 38 says, quote, "For example, they seemed to believe that the world was a much more dangerous and frightened place than it actually was. Mean world syndrome. How," okay, end quote. "How were the levels of danger and fright measured to make this determination?" I would have to reread Gross, 1976, and Gerbner's initial cultivation theory publications to remind myself of those data sets. So that's not a cop-out to say. Well, off the top of my head, I don't know. I know how to get back to those data sets and find them. It would take a little extra work than I had to prep out in that case, but that's an interesting thing to think about for a mass communication perspectives course we offer here in the fall, and then likely back next late spring or summer, maybe something like that. And then of course we have communication theory, media studies, and research and design. So opportunities to dig up those initial scholarly works. Here's something to think about, though. I want to try to bring this back to a palatable response. And that is, just because someone did a study in 1956 or 63 or whatever, it could have been a breakthrough and excited a shift in the way we think about something. It's always important that a part of our research methods training is we recognize the need for validity, okay, to determine whether something is valid, a claim, a finding, a research question, and so on, and also reliability, all right, validity and reliability. And that reliability means, can we test the same thing over time or repeatedly and come to the same conclusions and get the same results? And so the reliability and validity are among two of many important qualities in serious research, whatever that is, to help us make these verifiable claims about a given phenomenon under investigation. How might agenda setting theory be revised to be more relevant in the internet age, as suggested by page 41? Still relevant. Agenda setting theory, highly relevant today, and we've added new layers and new wrinkles. That's the job of ongoing scholars, right? Is to update those conversations, call for new theories, sub-theories based on those originals, but expanding on them, new methods, new tools, because we have changing mediums, changing ways we communicate. So we need new tools to be able to explore those and help us decipher that information so that we can have clear understanding of how reality works. Take yet another break. We'll be back with some final thoughts on your questions. Stay tuned.